I'm here with Günter Nösner from ARRI. Günter, what are we showing off at BILD today?
So we have an Alexa 35 here with a signature zoom. We have the new NIA, the network interface adapter, which was just announced a couple of weeks ago. We have some Enso Prime prototypes. We have some nets here that we can show off. And we have the camera control monitor, which is on this side, the other camera over here.
So you were telling me about this little guy right here. So this will convert lens to an Ethernet cable?
Yes, so this is basically a way where you can run camera communications through a longer cable. Let's say if you're underwater and you want lens control from a boat above or from a longer distance. LBUS cables are typically you cannot run them more than 45 feet. But if you convert them into an Ethernet protocol, Ethernet can be run literally much longer runs.
So was this something that like customers were asking for? Like we want to be able to take these cameras underwater?
Yes, I mean that's one of the functions that we always had an issue where when you run it with LBUS, you would have to put a repeater in the middle to kind of re-amplify the signal to kind of go further. So this is a way around this. And also this device also allows you synchronizing two camera lenses where you can control both lenses with one high five. So here's a high five. This is the high five SX, for example. And if you're, let's say, in a 3D rig, for example, right, and you wanted to control the focus of both lenses simultaneously, you could do it with this little box.
Tell me about the lenses a little bit. So these are like, are these new housing or are they new altogether?
So these are the Enso lenses. It's a completely new design of primes that are less expensive than the signature primes. And they're physically smaller. It's a simpler design. It has probably fewer lens elements than the signatures. They have a similar look. They're maybe a little bit more contrasty. They sink into the black faster. But we designed them also with input from DPs, meaning we asked them, what do you like to have in a lens, right? And some of the DPs were tabletop DPs that would shoot food and where you need to get close to objects. So we made sure that these lenses, you have at the close focus point, you have a 1:4 magnification. Meaning it's not a macro, but it's very close to something that you can work with. And again, this is pretty much consistent all the way from the 18 to the 250, where you can get the same cutout, right, at the close focal point. At the same time, it comes with a net holder. Here's some nets I can show you. Different nets that you can put on the back of the...
And these go over the back element.
Yes, so this is changing the look of the lens. It changes the bokeh, it softens the image. This one specifically also reflects the light in a certain way. But if you work with like nets, all kinds of nets where you can soften the image, and without having to glue it on the back of the lens, you can just use these frames and pop them on. There's also what we call vintage elements. They look like this. There's positive ones and negative ones. 3 positive ones and 3 negative ones. And you see here, they also pop on.
Oh, cool.
They have a little contact on the back here, where if you made it with this one, now this lens will know which vintage element I have on the back. It will tell the camera will tell the high five, and you can offset the little values if they happen to be different.
So it's not throwing off your focus, in other words.
Right, because when you add glass to the back of a lens, you're changing the lens focal distance, right? So you have to compensate for that. So on the positive ones, when you use positive filters, my infinity comes closer. When I use negative ones, my infinity point is further out, and I can't reach infinity.
So were these specifically designed for people where we need something that's a little less expensive, a little bit more compact, something that's more for a commercial shoot as opposed to a cinema shoot kind of thing?
No, I mean, they can be used for cinema, for commercial, for TV shows, whatever you can think of, but they're less expensive, meaning they're more affordable than the signature primes that are top of the line.
Right? And are they all PL mount?
they're all LPL mount, right? So this is bigger. That means they cover full frame. They cover Super 35, obviously. And then again, what I also didn't mention, this vintage element here, it alters the image. So if I put this on, it looks now like a vintage lens, meaning it kind of has a fall off towards the edge that gets stronger. You have more chromatic aberrations, you have more chroma, you have like a softness in the image. So think about it, you have a modern lens that you can make 6 different looks out of one lens without having to detune a lens, right? Because you can detune any lens, but then you're stuck with one look. This gives you the option to have 6 looks, or there's an empty frame where you can put your own optics in there. You can create your own looks if you wanted to do that.
So you have the characteristics and quality of a vintage lens without having to go out and buy vintage lenses.
Right, exactly. So this is also the trend, because we have very sharp cameras today with lots and lots of pixels. People want to have softness in the images, right? So that's why the trend is to take a vintage lens that is softer and less sharp to kind of come back to something that looks great. In this case, we can do it just by using a very quick modification on the back of the lens, right? So it's super simple.
The camera you've got everything on is the Alexa 35.
Yes, that's the Alexa 35. It has 17 stops of dynamic range, probably the most dynamic range that you can have in a digital camera. We can work with 87 looks that are all adjustable in from 0% to 100% in steps of 10%. Meaning you can have, let's say, a black and white look, and you only say you want only 50% of that black and white. So it's kind of something you cannot create manually. I mean, you can dial it in, right? We have textures here also, meaning you can, if you want something grainier, right, more film-like, there's a texture you can select to make the image look like that. If you want something sharper, more contrastier, it's a different texture you can select. If you're shooting nights, there's a texture that desaturates random noise, right? So there's different things where you can manipulate the image.
How do these new 35s compare to something like the Mini LF?
So it's a completely redesigned sensor, right? So Mini LF, the Mini, the Amira, the Alexa, they used to have the LF3 sensor. This is the LF4 sensor. It's a complete redesign from the ground up. That's also why we can make smaller photo sites and still have a technology on the sensor that allows us to get to 17.5 dynamic range.
And you're able to do that somehow because, like, ARRI's sort of famous for not going like whole hog on huge resolution. Like, you got Blackmagic across the way with 17K, 12K, and you guys are like, what, 4.6?
4.6K. Yes.
So what is the difference? Like, is it more pixels versus better pixels?
So again, the resolution raise is something that is debatable, right? So if you're looking at sports and you're shooting at a wide field and you think you need to zoom in and you crop a little HD image out of it, yeah, maybe you need resolution. But in our opinion, the human eye can only resolve a certain amount of resolution. And motion pictures, right? You have moving images. When I move my hand, you don't see the detail. And that happens with motion picture at 24 frames a second. So there is no point in going higher in resolution because you're just adding more data points, but you still don't have a clear image unless I'm stopped, right? When you're looking and you're taking a picture as a still and you want to blow things up and nothing moves, yes, you get super sharp, crisp images, but again, it's not intended for motion picture.
And you guys, your main clients are cinematographers, professionals. Like, this is not going to your prosumer hobbyist kind of camera.
Well, again, this camera is rather expensive, so it's only when you're in the more professional world you would be able to even afford this camera. But it also is in the corporate world, right? So in the sports world, right? So NFL Films is one of the companies that uses these cameras on the sidelines of a game because they like the look, they like the feel of the texture, right? Because they shoot, it's not the live image that you see on TV, but it's what they're recording. You can see a recap in their shows that they're creating.
Those guys are making, it's a television show, but they're making cinema.
They're making cinema, right.
All right, so for people who are interested, want to know more about these products, want to know where they can find ARRI, where can they find you guys online?
Well, our main website is ARRI.com. There's sections about lenses, about cameras, and there's lots of download pages and I'm sure you can find pretty much information on all the products that we make. Lighting also, we have a few lights here. And
Do you guys have tutorials as well on how to use this stuff?
yes, there is a section that's called ARRI Academy. There used to be an in-person class that we used to do, but there's also like an online class you can sign up for that you can learn about cameras, specifically cameras. It's also, there's some service classes for somebody that's a rental house that wants to train their service technicians. They can also sign up for these classes.
All right, so thank you for having us, and this is Günter Nösner with ARRI at BILD Expo 2025.
This is the BTRP Media Network.